So today we're going to be doing a dash swap and heater core on my wagon. Haven't done a first gen heater core before, but we are part way through the black interior swap. So we've got black carpet, got the rear seats, all the trim in the back, got the windows tinted. Just haven't done B pillars because these ones I have shaved down to not fray the seatbelt here, so I need to do that to the black ones, put the other pillars on, and swap the dash because that's still blue. So unfortunately I don't have a manual shifter trim yet, so that one might get spray painted at some point. But basically, glove box, these panels here, this panel, obviously shifter trim first, and then that panel all need to come out. The underneath the steering column panel needs to come out. Steering column will get dropped down. I have a black steering wheel on the way that is not here yet. Gauge cluster comes out, and then this black section comes out, some screws under here, behind all the buttons on either side, and then we'll start unbolting the actual dash. This is the black dash that's going in, so it's in pretty nice shape. It's a little dirty. I just took off that little panel across here just to have it sit on here right. One thing I'm gonna do while they're both out is drill out these rivets and swap over the VIN tag from my other dash because I want my VIN on there. I made the mistake of not doing that on the last one of these that I did, and I regret it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna start taking trim out of the wagon. So, if you're trying to take this panel off to then get the gauge cluster out and all that stuff, basically pop out all these buttons down there, unplug them, and then behind each one there's a Phillips screw. Phillips screw there, there, and then on this side, I had my fog light switch here, but screw there, and then there's two screws underneath, so right there and there, underneath the vent, which I already took those out, so this is kind of loose. And then once you start, well, actually, back up, we're going to drop the steering column down to avoid, you know, the steering column's going to come down anyway, basically because we're pulling the dash out. You can tilt it all the way down and fit this black piece out, but sometimes it'll cut the dash right here, like you can actually see that mark right there. So we're dropping the steering column either way to get the whole dash out, so I'm just going to drop it down to make getting this trim piece out a lot easier. So I did forget to mention the two screws right up here that go vertical, which you don't need a stubby screwdriver for if you drop the column down. The column is basically just these two bolts. You just unbolt that and lay it down, so you're resting on the seat, and make sure you're not pulling too hard on any wiring that may be underneath it. This car has an alarm, so there is some wiring, but there's room for it to rest on the seat without pulling on it too hard. And then gauge cluster, it's basically just 4 screws Yeah, one there, one there, one there, and one there. And then there's the speedometer cable that's kind of clipped on the back that'll just pop off if you pull on it. And then there's, I believe, 4 connectors. There's like 2 up here and then one big one on each side. Yeah, that's the emergency light switch. I'm going to take that trim panel off and we'll start pulling this guy out, which has one connector behind it with a bunch of slacks so you can pull it out, and then the cable connection is this cable right here, which just goes down. Let me see if I can show you. So that cable connection is right there. It just runs through this clip, so you can, might not be able to do it with one finger off one hand, but basically it pops out of that clip, and then it's just wrapped around a peg to pull on the HVAC stuff. So pop that cable off, that'll run through, unplug the harness, and the HVAC controls are out. So with that out of the way, I kind of bent one of the tabs and bend that back. That's the speedometer cable. I might be actually swapping the dash harness over too. Normally the harness would kind of stay with the dash. You just unplug it from the car harness. But I've got my radio wiring here and it's not on an adapter. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not done fantastically, but if I can avoid sitting here doing like 16 wires, that'd be great. And while I'm doing all this, I'm also going to run the microphone for the radio properly, because it was never ran properly before. But essentially all that's left is the harness to get unplugged from the body. Down here, there's connectors for it. Might be under here. There's a big harness for it on each side, and then there's a ground strap underneath the carpet right there on either side. So where's that one? I can't see that one. I swear there's another one on that side though. There's one on each side. So don't forget those. And then basically the dash is held in by these 10mm bolts. There's one there, one right there, and then one on each side down here. Same right next to the glove box. Up there. I think there's one underneath here, and then I gotta pop this piece off. There's one under there. And then after that, the dash can be picked up and taken out. So, just got the dash out. There was one more ground connector right here, and then I have all the alarm stuff over there, so I had to make sure all that was away and secure without getting pulled on. Essentially the heater core is in there, and that's what we're changing. So that looks like fun. Probably not. But essentially we're gonna figure out how to take out this whole box, or take it apart enough to change the heater core and clean all of this crap. Like, this is disgusting. The donor car that's over there in the driveway is way cleaner inside. Like, even this carpet, like, comparison to the blue carpet that I took out of here, looks like practically brand new. So didn't even shampoo it. It was still super clean. Yeah, so guess I need to start. I'll show you the connectors on this side. These big 3 that bolt on, or the ECU bolts on. There's one that goes to the fuse box, and one more that goes to the dash harness. This side just has the one. So now I need to get this off, transfer that over. So this is the VIN plate that I just took off the black dash. Just used a drill bit and just drilled out the rivets This is the piece that has the VIN plate from the blue dash that I'm taking out. So I want to keep this. This thing was just broken and loose in there. I'm just going to drill out these rivets and keep my VIN plate. Just like that. There we go. And then on the black dash, I basically just push these through like that. And then we can just rivet on the new VIN plate. So it is not a turbo wagon, unfortunately. So I don't get the JF1 VIN number, but at least it'll be accurate. This is my little rivet kit. Should have some tiny ones. Maybe that size. Not sure if I have to use these super tiny ones or these slightly tiny ones, but I guess I can test it in here. Yeah, those are perfect. That's a nice snug fit. So I'm going to use these. I think all my sizes got jumbled up. There we go. Got the old piece from the rivet stuck in the gun. Got it back out. There we go. That's one thing that you cannot get to once the dash is in the car, because you have a freaking windshield here. So unless you have the windshield out, you're never going to get to that. I'm probably going to take some Sharpie and just Sharpie these black so that it looks more factory. Less obvious, I guess. So next I'm gonna swap over the dash harness. So basically just gonna push all these through. Doesn't matter too much right now, and then flip over the dash, and it's held on most of those Phillips screws on the backside. So I got it swapped over. These are all just screws and some clips. You just use like needle nose or something to unclip. This way I have my not so pretty but usable radio wiring. You might want to keep some extra stuff like illumination control units right there. And I think that's the flasher unit I'm plugging in now. So if you have extra when you're doing this, you might want to keep yours, or you keep your old ones, just in case something doesn't work. I'm going to try this cigarette lighter, but I know my old one works, so if it doesn't work, I'll swap it out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just get it routed right and get all the screws in. While you're doing this is the perfect time to like replace any light bulbs, like that's for the glove box. And then there, you know, if you are wanting to do gauge cluster bulbs, it's the time to do it. Even the HVAC controls have bulbs in it that you can change. So now is time for the fun part of replacing the heater core. I can see the heater core lines there, which it looks like they're longer metal lines that are a completely different shape than these things, but it looks like I can just unbolt them and bolt on the metal hard lines. As long as I can get it to seal up well and not leak, then that'll work. So this is just like some cheap replacement Dorman one, I think. So I'm basically gonna start getting the harness off here. This is my AC temperature sensor that I had to replace, which is normally on the back side, and I just drilled a hole and put it through into the evaporator, and it works great. So but I might route that the correct way this time, since I'll be able to get to the back of it, because I'm pulling this entire assembly out. So I'm just going to get the harness off. I might take this bracket off. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to take this one off or not. I don't think so. And then I'm basically going to start unbolting it. All these bolts. Take the evaporator hose, or the drain hose off, and try and get this entire thing out in one piece. And then it's a matter of disassembling it, changing the heater core, and then putting it all back in, which I've never done this on a first gen. So I'm just gonna put it on time lapse and try and figure it out. So that was absolutely terrible. Essentially, I did not want to do this the way that you're probably supposed to, because I cannot evacuate my R12 AC. If it was 134A, I could take it to work and I could evacuate it and then, you know, come home and do this, no problem. But I basically can't take this box out all the way because it's got the evaporator in it. So I got it loose enough, and I got this box loose enough that I could fit this one around it. Now normally this one sits directly behind this one, so it really cups behind it. So it made it really difficult to pull it basically forward and out that way enough to be able to wiggle it out. There's also, when you disconnect the heater core hoses, there's grommets on the firewall. They were also holding on to these pretty good, so definitely need to do that. And then essentially we're going to unbolt these pipes and transfer it over to that brand new heater core and get that grody mess out of there. Which I think this is probably just held in by these on the pipes. So I'm gonna undo those and see if this heater core just comes straight out. So this is my absolutely disgusting heater core. The issue that I was having with this thing is not it leaking, but actually a lack of flow. So the heat would basically not blow hot at stoplights. So like as you come to a stop, lower RPM, the heat just goes away. I mean, it's like still a tiny bit warm, but at like 2,000 or 3,000 RPM, you'd start like getting some heat in the car. So like on the freeway, it's not a problem. In traffic, I really hate not having heat. So I think it's basically corroded inside. I tried doing a cleaning and did not have any success with that. So I think it's just basically corroded. But I'm gonna fire up the air compressor and blow out all this crap, clean up this whole area, and then get these pipes transferred over, put the new heater core in, and then start the reassembly process. I basically just cleaned it out with some compressed air and Lysol. not perfect, but it's pretty clean. Transferred over the new one, and I did foam insulation around the top and bottom, just like the old one had. It's just all rotted away. And then we noticed, if we can get the sunlight, I don't know if you can see inside there, but that's completely clogged. See, that side's clean. That side's literally just full of gunk, which looks like it could be stop leak. Not really sure. Really gross though. But I'm glad I confirmed that is the source of the issue. And I was able to transfer these over, use the new gaskets with the old pipes. And the old pipes had these little plastic spacers. So basically just used the plastic spacers with the new gaskets in the center and bolted on the new pipes, and then I'm just putting on these brackets to hold the pipes down, and this thing is ready to go back in. So you can see the insulated foam on the bottom and the top right there. That's all bolted back in. Well, I wasn't recording for the setting the dash part in, but essentially, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. You just set it in, make sure you have the harness routed right, like this is the HVAC stuff, emergency lights, gauge cluster stuff. Yeah, pretty much, as long as you have everything routed right, you just kind of set it up in there. It's got a peg that it kind of sits on, and make sure your bolt holes are lining up, which they are, so I'm just gonna start throwing stuff back in. Well, I kind of ran out of light, but here we are. We got the whole black dash. Obviously, I don't have the steering wheel yet, but got the steering wheel trim, everything. Heater core is obviously all done. Everything's hooked up. I swapped over the glove box handle so that the key still matches my key. Yeah, pretty much everything. I was just cutting the B-pillar trim to height right there because I have regular seat belts installed. So, and then also whenever I do that, I also file out this edge on the bottom B-pillar so that it's not so sharp, so that when the seat belt drags on it, it's not fraying it. And yeah, I still need to get rid of this, but I need a manual black trim piece, essentially, or just some spray paint. But yeah, hopefully I'll have that new leather wrapped black steering wheel soon. But thanks for watching, and yeah, if you need a heater core on a first gen, it's not terrible. It's like a one-day job, but you can do it.